By the end of this series, you'll have a framework for recognizing which season you're actually in, whether in business, career, or life, and the discernment to make better timed decisions that protect what's matters while positioning you for sustainable growth. And I will bring it back around and say thank you so much, because this is a conversation that I look forward to every single time I have the pleasure of getting on your calendar, because one, you're just a kind soul, and two, you're very informative and you put people at ease, but you give them what they need for them to be able to make strides in their life. And there just aren't enough people out there that can contribute that. So thank you.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate
Yes.
that.
Yes. Well, I said, it's I got to give you your flowers. I also have to be
Yeah.
able to explain to people why you are warranting those flowers and all the reasons why it makes so much sense. So, what I'll do is I'll lean into the starting point of when when we actually started having the conversation. And one of the things that made me say I would love to be able to talk to you was
Mm,
when I was getting to year 5. I'm coming up on year 8 now, and I had a conversation with you, and I said, "Yeah, I'm starting to figure some things out." I knew what I knew, but then I didn't know the things that I didn't know.
yes.
And one of the things that you said is year 5. I remember year 5.
Mhm,
And it was such an eye-opening moment, because it reminded me that there are milestones and there are checkpoints and things that when
mhm,
we look into those, we'll gain clarity that we may not get otherwise. And it's so easy to be siloed and just think it's just me. And
mhm.
then you realize you talk to someone else and you're like, oh, so this is just something that happens to everybody, or you figure things out where you're not alone. And
Yeah.
it's empowering in its own way. So I want to say thank you for that. And then also just say this is what this episode is about. It's really at looking at some of the patterns and some of the things that people will see along the way. And once they see it, then they can't unsee it. And
Mhm.
then that's one of the beauties of it. So before I go into anything further, is there anything that stands out to you about just the patterns and some of the things that come up along the way?
Uh, I think one of the patterns that happens when you're a business owner is that you have to get out of the mindset of being an employee first. And in that first 5 years, you have that employee mindset.
Hmm.
You gotta work so many hours, you gotta do things a certain way, the way corporate did them, but you're in a different space when it comes to being a business owner in an expertise that you have, that you may have gained through that corporate experience, right?
Hmm.
So, people have to get over that before they can be like, "Huh, like, I get to call the shots. No one is telling me or motivating me. It
Hmm.
has to be internal.
Yes.
It
Yes.
must be internal." So just getting over that hump, like, the regular paycheck, because as an entrepreneur, that paycheck
Hmm.
ain't regular
Hmm.
and it ain't
Hmm.
regular for quite some time, right?
Hmm.
So those are some of the things that I can recall just coming from corporate, being, doing my own thing, trying to figure out how do I sell this expertise?
Yes.
How do I do that? How do I make money at it? Right?
Hmm.
Because sometimes, and I've worked with people who thought they were in business, but what they really had was a nonprofit because they did not understand how to position what their expertise was and transferring transformation to someone else and putting a dollar figure on it. And they get caught up
Absolutely.
in that, so they just don't sell anything.
Absolutely. I mean, what you said is so triggering in some good ways and some bad memories.
Yeah.
I I definitely agree. One of the things that I came to, I would say last week, is I had a conversation with someone, and he was laying out his business model and he was telling me about this AI tool that he was running out. And I said, okay, I can see where you're at with it. And then the corporate side of me kicked in, because I'm like, all right, well, if you're telling me all of these things, then it means that you're ready and you figured these things out. So I said, well, you covered use case 1. Let's talk about use case 2, 3, and 4. And his thing is, well, whoa. And I lost him. And I
Oh,
had to realize that, one of the things that I took after that, I said, okay, well, at least I made him aware that there's a
mhm.
next step after that.
Yes.
But I had to learn a lesson from that as well. And one of the lessons that I learned was the difficulty of transitioning what our corporate experience is over into entrepreneurship.
Mhm.
And the takeaway that I got from it was I have to be more aware of readiness
Mm.
because we can't necessarily explain something to someone when they are not in a position to be able to hear it.
Yes.
And I explain a lot of times, and this is why I love my grandmother, is that she used to say, "Did you hear what I said?" And I would say, "Yes." And she said, "But were you listening?"
Mhm.
There are a lot of people that are willing to hear you out, but they're not necessarily listening.
Listening.
And the takeaway that I get from some of it is you have to understand where they're at, and you also have to understand where they're trying to go. So I've almost reset the whole way that I do things. Instead of working start to finish, I work finish to start. Tell me where you're trying to go, what your
Mhm.
destination looks like. And then I can start to work backwards and say, okay, well, here's what the path looks like. Here's some of the options.
Mhm.
And then we can get to the beginning and then work our way back from there. So I think it's really important to understand that because one of the other things that I took away from that call is the difference between passion and purpose. We
Mm.
can be very passionate about something, but we can't forget that the business is a business. And if we are so focused on our passion, we can bypass the purpose of, like you said, nonprofit.
Mhm.
And people, we have to make money. You have to keep the lights on. You
You
have to
do.
do certain things to make it work. Otherwise, it's not a business. It's a passion project. It's a hobby. It's something that we like to do, but
Mhm.
it is not a business. So I
Business.
love that that's where you started because that is one of the biggest things that we have to learn. And then I think one of the other things that I took away more recently is within that passion, sometimes we want to be the hero in the story. And
Mhm.
one of the other things that I know that I take from the corporate side over to entrepreneur is on the corporate side, I was rewarded for being able to see further down the road. I was rewarded for being able to mitigate risk and do all of these things. And that expertise paid me well.
Mhm.
But now, as an entrepreneur, that expertise gets in the way of me getting paid
Yes.
because I will overwhelm someone based
Yes.
on, well, here's all the things that I'm saying. Here's your options. Here's this, here's that. And I can just tell when they start to glaze over and they're just like, I just wanted to be a hero in the story. I just want to come in and save the day. And it's when you grow to a certain point, you realize that it doesn't require you, it requires a solution. And those are two different things. So when
Mhm.
you first started your business, yes, you want to be the person where you can say, well, I made this difference. I did this, I did that. But as you get further along, you realize in order, if you're really trying to be a business, you're going to have to scale and you cannot be involved in every single aspect or you will burn out or you will do some things where you end up doing real damage to your reputation and other people's lives. I'll just say it that way.
That is true.
It's-
Most people starting out, there's this hustle culture as well,
Mhm,
you know?
mhm.
And you gotta do this, and you gotta be on this platform, that platform, you gotta go to this event and that event, and you're not paying attention to your own internal body, like, and
Yes.
how it's reacting. So, yes, you do have to make money,
Mhm,
and yes, you do have to make those connections, especially when you're newer in
mhm.
business, but you can't forget that you there is a balance to this, or
Yes.
you will crash and burn. You will crash and burn. So, I'm not saying that you shouldn't hustle because there's a time for that,
Mhm.
but you shouldn't always be in hustle because if you are if you are being retrospective about what you learned in that hustle to set you up for the future so that you can work and flow, then your life is more balanced.
Yes.
Your life is more balanced as the entrepreneur. And I'm not saying like coming from that corporate mindset,
Mhm.
you always have to show up to work on Monday morning,
Yes.
you know? And
Rain or
you
shine.
always look forward to Friday. But when you own the business, it's 24/7. And
Yes.
a lot of people don't realize that. So
No.
they can get burned out in it because they haven't identified its place. And that's a hard one for people. to learn and understand too.
We're gonna end up going off script because you keep nailing some things where I'm like, we might get to that later, but like that is something that absolutely has to be addressed. There
Mhm,
is a difference. Uh, One of the things that I was actually working on, I haven't fully scoped it out yet, but it's the accountability spectrum. And
mhm,
it's really looking at when you're working for someone else, if you
mhm,
get something wrong, it's not really on you.
mhm,
It's on them.
mhm,
So if you mess up something in work, they're the ones that have to figure out how they're going to make that right with the client. You may get
mhm.
reprimanded, you may even get fired,
Right.
but it's not necessarily laying at your feet the same way as it would is when you're a business owner. So it is something where you have to think through the accountability part of it. And
Mhm,
when you're so used to being able to say, well, I can come up with this idea and this idea, when you become a business owner, when you become an entrepreneur, then you are responsible for every single idea that you run with and all the people that interact with it along the way. So
mhm,
that is something where I think that's really, really important for people to understand. I knew how to be able to run a business because, I rose up in the ranks where, if I went out on a call with a salesperson, I was the person that actually listened and said, yeah, I heard what you think they want, but this is
mhm.
what they actually said they want.
Yeah.
And either I would say, yes, we have that as a product or a service, or no, we don't.
Mhm,
And then I had to evaluate, is that something that we can create, or is it going to be something that would be so custom that we have to kind
mhm.
of say no?
Right.
And I think that's something that else also comes into as you get further along the road in entrepreneurship is understanding not all money is good money. And some
Mhm,
money is going to be to your detriment, and some money will actually be your undoing. And
mhm,
you have to be able to recognize that and know when to be able to say, as great as an opportunity as that is, it's not an opportunity for me based on where I'm at and what I'm trying to accomplish. So I love that you went there. It's something that I think more people should understand.
yes, because there is a difference.
There is a very big difference. And that difference is the conversation that I had leading up to me going, yes, I had 5 years. And you said, yeah, I remember 5 years. And I was like, it's a business. I was
Yeah.
running a business up to that point, but now I'm a business owner where I realize, oh man, there's the pivots, there's all kind of things that you
Mhm,
have to think about. And if you don't take those things into consideration, then you could have a really tough road to hoe. One of the other things that I would say is there's discernment. And that's where you learn it over the years. You start realizing not all advice is good advice, and you start
mhm.
listening for the advice that makes the most sense to you and where you're at, as opposed to some of the things that people put out there. And it sounds good on the surface,
Yeah.
but in reality, it's not what they think it is. One of the things I see a lot are people that will say, "All you have to do is," and as soon as I hear that, I'm irritated and I'm triggered because I'm like, there is nothing about entrepreneurship that is all you have to do. So
Right.
it's one of those things you start to listen for things, you start to pay attention, you see the patterns, and you start to be able to figure out who you should probably listen to and who is doing something just because it's a trending topic and they just want to be able to stay in the feed longer and
Mhm,
they have their own agenda.
mhm. I always say it's like an onion,
Mhm.
and every time you pull down a layer, there is another layer.
Absolutely.
No matter if you've been in business 1 year or 25,
Mhm.
doesn't matter. There's always another layer. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I one of the ways that I can tell when I'm getting close to that next level is things
Mm,
get difficult all over again. And I'm like,
mhm,
what is going on? Like I had figured stuff out and all of a sudden it feels like people are testing me, life is testing me.
mhm,
And it's because it's trying to make sure that you're ready for that next level that you're going to.
mhm,
Because once you're there, you're there.
mhm,
And it's one of those things, once you realize it's almost like people working up to get to six figures initially that once they get there, they're not worried about what happens after that. They're worried about whether or not they're going to backslide. And they don't want to
mm,
fall back below that line because now they can say, well, I'm making six figures. And that means that technically you're a real business. And it's a scary, scary proposition. One of the things that I also try to explain to people is the higher you go, the higher you have to fall. So this is why foundation matters even more
yes.
because it's nothing, 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 nothing like knowing that if you fail, you could technically go back to scratch. And if you don't have the foundation, then that's what you're looking at. But if you put some of the things in place, you may backslide a little bit, but you're not going back to, bare bones. You're going back to something where you're like, okay, I've been here before. I know what to
Mhm,
do. And you can kind of build that back up again because it is not a straight line. There is times where it's like you can get to a certain point, then you go back, then you get to a certain point, depending on how your business works and how you're structured. So yeah.
But I do believe that if you are learning the lessons along the way,
Mhm.
if your business crashed and burned and you have learned the foundational principles,
Mhm.
you can build back better. You can
Yes.
because you already know the path.
Mhm.
And actually it's gonna be a shorter path because of the lessons you've already learned. So
Absolutely.
you can, it could be outside factors that cause you to, you know, close one business and
Mhm.
start another business. It could be internal factors, it could be family factors, it could be a lot of different things that might cause you to go slide back.
Mhm.
But if you have been laying the bricks of the foundation and learning the lessons as a CEO along the way, then you can start any business and go back to 100K.
Yeah.
You can
Yeah.
because you already know the steps to get there and you've learned the lesson of how to acquire a new client.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you've learned
Yeah.
those lessons so you can do it again. Yeah,
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think those are the toughest lessons of who
they
to
are.
say yes to, who to say no to, and who
Mhm,
not to listen to. And
mhm,
once you figure that part out, then you start to see some of the patterns and you recognize the patterns sooner.
mhm,
So it makes it easier for you to be able to progress. Um, One of the things I wanted to ask you, and this is one of the things that I started highlighting to people when we're talking about from the corporate side to the entrepreneurial side, is the business models and how some people structure things. I've spent enough time on the corporate side, decades, where I know that it can be very much supply and demand.
mhm,
But once I got over to the entrepreneurial side, one of the things I realized that not only that I had to learn, but I have to explain to other people is it almost flips and it's more demand and supply than it is supply and demand because the larger businesses have the runway, they have the budget, they have the resources to be able to plan an idea or plan a thought in someone's head and wait for it to come to fruition.
mhm,
Whereas if we're a smaller business owner, we may not have that same runway. And that kind of goes back to passion versus purpose, where you can be very passionate about something.
mhm,
But if the rest of the segment that you're going after, if you don't have a large enough audience that feels equally as passionate about it and they're
mhm,
not prioritizing it in their life, that is a business that may fail, and then you'll have to figure out how to be able to build one based on purpose of making sure
mhm,
that you can cover what you need to cover. So I wanted to get your thoughts on that because I know sometimes what I'll explain to people is, you know what, if that's your passion project and that's really your baby, then you
mhm,
may want to start your business with something that is more your purpose and something that you can deliver on and you know that you can have help finance that passion project as opposed to you putting your savings in something that you're
mhm.
waiting for it to come to fruition as opposed to going to market with something that you know that you can generate revenue with and using that to be able to pay for the thing that you want to be able to give all the time and attention that it needs.
Yeah, passion versus purpose, right? If you lead with purpose, you will be able to sustain yourself.
Yeah.
So, the market, like you said, it depends on the market you're in,
Hmm.
but leading with your expertise or building something out before you have clients may not always be the right way to go.
Yeah.
So, what need does your audience actually have? And then how can your expertise fit into that? That is how you will actually make money.
Hmm.
Instead of trying to build something and fit people into it, if you discover who your ideal client is and what their need is and how you can service that need, that is where you make money. That's that gap right there. They
Yes.
need something, they don't know how to get it, but you have the expertise, but they don't even know you have that expertise,
Hmm.
right? Because you're trying to build something out here that they're not calling it the thing.
Yes.
And you're just miscommunicating, right?
Hmm.
You're miscommunicating, so you're missing them. So if you actually talk to them and ask them questions and actually start to put things in place that will solve one problem.
Mm,
'Cause you could probably solve a lot of problems, but the thing that they're trying to pay for right now is one problem, and
yes.
you're trying to give them 10 things you can solve, right?
Mhm.
And they only wanna solve 1. Because
Ex
that's the most pressing thing for them, or that is their biggest pain point right now.
yeah.
So when you actually communicate with people, you begin to find out what their problems actually are. And
Mhm.
then the more you string those together, then you can discover, oh, I'm
Mhm.
servicing this type of client
Mhm.
with this type of problem.
Absolutely.
And that's how you build sustainability in purpose,
Absolutely.
where you can have recurring revenue rather than nobody wants to pay for what I got, you know? Yeah.
Yeah, I love it because it's not only true, it's something that's researchable.
Mhm.
It's one of those things where I'll tell someone, "Don't take my word for it."
Yeah.
Look around, because it won't take you long to be able to realize, "Oh, yeah." One of the things that I explain to people is you have to understand what it is that you're bringing to market and how much they prioritize it. And
Mhm.
that's where supply and demand versus demand and supply
Mhm.
kicks in, because
Yep.
if it's a want, what I say is there's wants, needs, nice to haves, and guilty pleasures.
Mhm.
That describes the length of the customer journey that you're going to be on, or the sales
Mhm.
process.
Mhm.
And it's something where when you understand what that is, then you can understand how long it's going to take for you to be able to do it and how many people you need to talk to in order to make that business model sustainable. So there are some people that go in with a auto industry business model, and
Mhm.
they've got a stick of gum budget. So it's one of those things where it's like, I need money right now, but you're selling something that you actually have to convince people to be able to be interested in, or it's a want instead of a need. Nice to haves is one of the things that I explain to them when I say wants, needs, nice to have. A want is something where you kind of get that need. That's more prioritized. A nice to have, I equate it to going to the supermarket and you're doing your grocery shopping, and then you get up to the register and they have the stick of gum, they've got the soap opera magazines, they got those things like that. And it's one of those things of, I'm already spending money, I might as well. So it's a
Mhm.
nice to have. And then guilty pleasures are something that requires a certain level of trust, and
Mhm.
if you don't have a connection with someone, then that's something that's layered behind boundaries. When you talked about onions, that was one of the
Mhm.
things that made me think of, because uh, most people don't share their guilty pleasures until they realize they have something in common with you, that you can't shame them because they can shame you. And then
Mhm.
it's like, oh, you like that too? Yeah, I like that. And then they start talking about what their guilty pleasures are. So you
Yeah.
have to understand what you're bringing to market and understanding how they view it, because it's no longer
Yes.
about us. The
Mhm.
moment you enter in entrepreneurship, you're thinking, well, I'm bringing something to market that matters to me, so it should matter to everybody else. And it's like, no. What you have
No.
to do is figure out what matters to them and then build something where you can say, well, I can monetize that, or I can deliver that.
Mhm.
And I think one of the ways that I try to explain it is it's the art of making something inconvenient convenient and people paying you for it. So if you can
Yeah.
understand it from that concept, it's like, find something that is either prioritized on some level, and you're saying, well, if that bothers you, how much would you pay for someone to be able to fix that?
Mhm.
And then once you can figure that part out, then it starts to make it so that you understand how much you should charge and all the rest of that. Because I know a lot of business owners that I'll speak with them, and I said, okay, well, lay out your business model for me. Like, what's your price point? And if I use clothing as an example, I've seen some people that say, oh, well, I'm going to charge like $60 for a t-shirt, and I'm going to put luxury in front of the name. And my thing is, you really have to understand what luxury actually is in order to be able to leverage that. The luxury brands are not based on the actual fabric or any of the production that actually takes place. What they're actually paying for is the customer experience. When you go into a place and they offer you bottled water and the aesthetics are really beautiful and all the rest of that, and you get a bag when you walk out that when other people see it, they're like, oh, you spent money.
Mhm.
That's the luxury that they're paying for.
Yes.
When we're a small business owner and we're talking about luxury, um, I don't know that you're going to be able to give them that same experience of when someone sees your brand name on the side of a bag, if they even get a bag, that they're going to have that same kind of reaction. So it's where I have to try to explain context, and that's where context really, really matters. So I love that you spoke to that, because I think that's important for people to understand. So we talked about some of the preparation that people can do and some of the things that they should look at beforehand. I want to talk about the people that hesitate and some of the
Mm,
people that may come to things too late because they saw something, they saw a void that they could have filled, and they either analysis paralysis or did something along the way where it made them miss that moment and what the cost of that moment may be.
yeah, sometimes when you have to be prepared for opportunity, right?
Mm,
Especially as a business owner, you have to be prepared for the opportunity to present itself. And if you're not prepared for that opportunity or you hesitate, you hem and haw about the investment of it, the return
mhm.
of it. Sometimes, that opportunity just floats away and you don't get a chance to partake in that opportunity because you hesitated too much. And I'm not saying that hesitation is not needed
Mhm.
because a lot of times it is. You need to
More than
gut
not.
check it. You need to gut check it first, but sometimes, you know, not hesitating, you will miss the opportunity if you hesitate too long. And
Yeah.
it could have been the best opportunity for you,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
But those are lessons learned, and it's not until you have retrospective thoughts about it that you will even be aware that you missed the opportunity
Or you took advantage of it at the perfect time. Yeah.
or you took advantage of it at the perfect time. "Oh, I'm glad I got in at the ground level," you
Mhm.
know? But
Mhm.
you never know one way or the other until it has already passed.
Absolutely.
So, to
Absolutely.
me, that just for me, like, as an entrepreneur, you take time to reflect. You take time and reflect on the things that have happened to you in business. And
Mm.
as we are just into the new year, like reflecting back on what last year did for you, whether or not you hesitated too long or you took an opportunity, now is a great time to go back and do those reflections to see if you didn't do them at the end of the year, right? To
Mhm.
see where how can I improve as the leader in my organization, so that I am aware of opportunities when they present themselves to me? Or am I just being skeptical and hesitant?
Yes. Yes. There are one of the things that I tell people is there are preventative measures and there's reactionary solutions.
Mhm,
When you're reacting to something, chances are you may get in, but you may not have gotten in when everybody else was getting in, or you may pay a steeper price to be able to take advantage of that thing. But I love what you covered because it speaks to understanding. Again, we're talking about pattern recognition in a way.
mhm,
You can spot it faster when you've seen it and you missed it
mhm.
than the first time you look at it and go,
Yes.
what is that? It's one of those things where the people that they see doing certain things, and this is why I have issues with through the air quote gurus, is because that's where I get triggered by that all you have to do is.
Mhm,
And I'm guilty, or well, at least I was guilty. Hopefully, I still don't do it. But I used to be guilty of it's simpler than you think, and it's not simple to the people that are going through it for the first time. That
exactly.
first iteration, you have to be able to document those things and
Mhm,
figure out what you're doing. That's why when I look at the failure rate, I try to explain to people it goes up, it doesn't go down. And it goes
mhm,
up because there are people that a broken clock could be right twice. So you
mhm,
may get through the first year, you may get through the second year, but if you're not documenting and figuring out the patterns that you're seeing along the way,
mhm.
then when the pressure raises and you get up to that certain point, that's why I say people have further to fall.
Yes.
So I think it's important to be able to recognize that because realistically, it's going to take you at least 18 months to be able to forecast things that you're seeing in your business. The first time through a year, you're just kind of trying to validate the idea.
Yep.
And then going into that next year, you may have that 6 months where you can say, well, I can base this 6 months on that initial 6 months. And that's where you can figure out the slow times, the times where you may be a little bit busier.
Mhm,
You start to find those little patterns where you can say, okay,
mhm.
I can plan for that, as opposed to just winging it. And when you first start a business, there's a lot of winging it. And
It is.
you can be fortunate enough where you can do really well. And this one of the scary things for me is When I talk to someone that's never failed and never really had a setback, I'm like, I'm fearful for you because you have no idea what it's like when it hits you. And if you don't have a plan or a foundation in place, it can set some people back where they're so shook by it that they may never venture back into
Yeah.
that world again.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, that's good. That's really good because it does happen. It definitely happens. But, as an entrepreneur, you have to reflect.
Mm,
You have to think about and document along the way what is happening in the business. Why did I get that result?
yes.
Like, so that you can repeat that again if that's the result you were looking for. If that wasn't the result you were looking for, don't do it again. Why you keep doing stuff? Why you keep bumping your head up inside the wall and it's not
Mhm.
working for you? Just because somebody told you to do it?
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
I mean, to me, that's where discernment starts to come into play,
Yes.
because you can't really teach people how to discern. But if you start looking at those, like you say, patterns that happen throughout entrepreneurship, then you can begin to discern whether information that is being given to you is
Mhm.
actually working for you. Because maybe that
Yes.
information worked for them or that group of people, but it is not working for you. And if you're not documenting that along the way through metrics, let us say,
Mhm.
um, then you will lose something over the long run if you're not documenting that because you can go back to it and reflect on it
Yeah.
and figure out the reasons why something worked or did not work.
Absolutely. I think this is one of the reasons why I say you're a kind soul. And you're very nurturing because in my mind, what I heard was you're setting yourself up to fail. I am
Yeah.
very much a you've got spinach in your teeth kind of guy. So I'm listening to that and going, yeah, I mean, if you're not documenting what it is that you're looking at, then you can very
Mhm.
easily run back into that same thing again. And life has a very sick sense of humor of it will continue to present the same thing to you until you learn that lesson
Until you
before it allows you to move past it. And yeah, I think it's really, really important to
Mhm,
document some of these things. And there are also the people where very much what you just covered, that pattern that you've seen it before, and
mhm,
they're able to get back up to that number faster. When I see people say, well, this is how I made, six figures, seven figures in this amount of time, I've had so many questions. And my questions are give me all the surrounding factors that you didn't include in that statement. Is this your first iteration of it?
mhm,
What kind of support did you have around it?
mhm,
Because there are some people that may start a business, but if you have people around you that have audiences and all the rest of these things that can build up your brand faster, then give me that context because you're
yeah,
going to tell me that I can make six figures, seven figures in 6 months. And sure, maybe, but
mm,
I may not be able to do it in the way that you did it because you already had a pre-existing audience. So you have friends that were
exactly.
willing to share it to their pre-existing audience.
Mhm,
There are so many different factors that go into things like that, and I think they're doing people a real disservice by not filling in the blanks,
mhm,
but I also understand, again, passion, purpose. My passion is to be able to make a difference. Their purpose is to be able to generate money. So, from the
mhm.
business side of it, I get it. It's like, I'm gonna tell you that I did something, and when it doesn't go well for you, the typical response is, "Well, you didn't do it right."
Right,
And you don't get educated in that. The education is hot stove. I won't do that again. Well,
right.
what in that did I get wrong? So then this way, the next time something comes up, I can say, okay, well, this part of it was right, but here's the part that somebody didn't say. And
Ex
some of that is really trial and error. And when you're betting your savings and you're betting, in some cases your family on it, because when you go into entrepreneurship, you may step away and add things from your to do list to their to do list,
Mhm,
and that's why I say there's a shelf life to that because I will speak from experience. When I first started my business, uh, I was working on the corporate side. I used to work a lot of hours because you get to a certain point and you just kind of have
mhm,
to. When I was still on the corporate side, my lady was like, we don't get to spend enough time together," and she's
mm,
someone that liked a certain amount of attention. So
mhm,
I was doing a detriment to myself, happy wife, happy life, to by working the hours and stuff that I worked. So she said, you should start something on your own.
Mhm.
I jumped into entrepreneurship. And the reality is, I jumped from working long hours for someone else to working long hours for myself.
Right.
And I had to be able to validate and build that business up and everything else. And there's the
Mhm.
shelf life. She was very supportive year one and even going into year two. But then after a certain point, she's like, we don't go out to restaurants the same way. We're not taking vacations the same way. I was willing to buy into this, but like you added things to my to-do list, like patience. And I feel
Yeah.
like I've given you a lot of patience. So
Yeah.
you have to think those things through. And this is why I say it's not just the professionals' decisions that we're making. We're making decisions for our personal life. And if we
Mhm.
don't do those kind of check-ins and make sure that we have that proper level of support, we can put ourselves in some very uncompromising positions and do some things that we can't fix. So one of the other things I try to explain to people is damage control doesn't undo damage. It's just you're trying to
Mhm.
control the damage that you've done.
Mhm. That's true.
So it's I'm we're talking about patterns and some of the rest of that. I also want to throw in some of the things of, oh, I learned that one the hard way. And that is not something that I will do again. And it's something that I will warn people of because especially for men and specifically brothers, like whew, let me explain. Like women do not downgrade. When you get someone used to doing something and you get them to a certain level of understanding and that's the expectations, and then you start calling an audible, like, oh well,
Right.
I did that to get you, but that's not going to work out well. They got used to it, and the moment you start talking about, well, I'm going to take that away, you better replace it with something that's equally or of more value.
Yeah.
Because if you don't, you're going to run into some problems. So make sure that you're being very intentional about the things that you're doing and you're getting that kind of buy-in because
Mhm.
yeah, hindsight will be 2020 on that one. And the 2020 is it's either going to cost you in one way or it's going to cost you in another way.
That
But
is so
whichever
true.
way that plays out,
Mm.
it's not going to go the way that you think it's going to go.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
check-ins is something that I definitely think are important, not just on the good things, but just in general. Make sure that
Mhm.
you still get that same level of buy-in because sometimes it's lip service. Like, yeah, yeah. I mean, you said you were going to do something and you didn't follow through on it. I'm so used to you not following through on going to the
Mm.
recital or this, that, and the other. And the
Yeah.
kids just stop asking you and you say, oh, I'm going to do it this time. There's
Mhm.
a lot of things where you're compromising things that you're not thinking about
Mhm.
because you might have gone a more aggressive route. So always be
Right.
mindful and keep your head on the swivel for the things that matter to you the most. My brother told me once when I was probably in my early 20s, maybe even earlier than that, he said, the only people that care if you're upset are the people that care about you.
Mhm.
And once he laid that out for me, there are things in life where once you see it, you can't unsee it.
Mhm.
That is on the list where it's decades since then, and it's such a priority for me when I realized that to be able to say, I always have to do that check-in with people that actually matter to me, and then I also have to be clear on the people that, it's gonna sound a little cold, the people that I can afford to compromise, based on the priorities that I have. So there are some people
Right.
where it's like, if you're upset, I'm not going to say you're going to get over it, but I have to be okay with you being upset because
Mhm.
this is me pursuing my purpose as opposed to me chasing something that if I took the time to be a little more selective and I paid attention to the things that I was doing, there's more of a way to balance that out. And I think more people can do that. So with that, I'd love to kind of go into finding that middle ground because you are further into that process than I am. And as much as I can give some insights on it, which to an extent I try to, I'm going to bow down to the person that has way more experience with it. And the woman that told me, yes, I remember 5 years because you're past where I am.
Yes. Yes. Well, finding that middle ground takes work and it takes
Mm,
time. Like, you don't get there overnight. And even when you're intentional about finding that middle ground, it still takes time,
mm,
right? So, after you get your feet wet and you really, step into like, I really do have a business, I can count on it, I can count on my income,
hmm
get to the place where you get burnout. You
Yeah.
get to the place where you've done it all this long. Now what?
hmm
How am I going to pull myself out of that and really step into being the owner
mm,
of what I have created?
Yeah.
So, finding
Yeah.
that middle ground is really starting to expand your business, finding those people who are in alignment with you
hmm
that you can build trust with so that you can pull yourself out and be in the middle. And then you allow them to do work on your behalf, right? And that is not an easy task.
No.
But I'm telling you, if you work on it and you find the right people and you get it right, you can have the life that you desired when you first started this thing.
Mm.
The life you desired.
Say it again. Yes.
Yes, the life you desired. But I'm not telling you it doesn't come without work,
Mhm.
because it does. And getting
Powerful.
here, it was work. It was work. Guess what the work was, though? You would never guess. The work was on me.
Mhm.
The work was on me, my own internal systems, what I
Absolutely.
believed, what was foundational to me, what was
Mhm.
my core values. Because until you know what that is, you can't bring in anybody to help you deliver that,
No. No.
because you're not gonna be able to build trust.
No.
So being in the
No.
middle is great. Like, it's a great life. It's a great life. And I have built a team that I can trust, and I can literally walk away,
I love it.
and
I love it.
they're gonna do everything in their power to continue to grow the thing that I built. It's crazy, but it's true.
It is factual. I will say I know more about it from seeing it than living it
Mhm,
to the extent of this business, but over the years, yeah.
mhm.
Yeah, you're talking to someone, 1, with trust issues for a reason, and 2, I also realize, I if I was putting it to a revenue stage, I would say it's kind of where you get to the point where you've exceeded like 50K to and you're getting into that 50K to 100K,
Mhm,
or you're working your way up to that 6 figures where you figured it out. Now
mhm.
you start to realize, okay, I can't do this all myself. I can, but I will burn out if I continue to
Right.
try to do it this way. And then you start to realize, and it kind of goes back to what I was saying before, where, in some cases you want to be the hero in the story.
Mhm.
It's when you get to the point where you're established enough to be able to go, it's about me, but it has nothing to do with me.
It has
And
nothing to do with me.
that's the
I
transition when that
have
clicks.
now become the guide. I am
Yeah.
the guide. I guide my team. I guide my clients. I am the guide. I am
Yes.
not the doer.
Yes.
I'm the
Yeah.
guide. So
Yeah.
I sit in my rightful place as the CEO, and actually, eventually, it's not here yet. I will just be the shareholder.
Mm.
I will
Mm.
just be the shareholder.
Mm.
But as of today, I'm sitting in that CEO seat.
Ladies and gentlemen, she just broke down what her destination looks like right now. And this is why I believe in working finish to start instead of start to finish in some
Mhm,
cases, because when you know where you're trying to go, then
mhm.
it's easier to be able to identify the things that'll help you get there.
Yeah.
One of the other things I think you explained in that, if we're really trying to thumb it down, is you just described the difference between running a business and owning a business.
Yes. Mhm. Yeah.
It's a significant difference. When you're running a business, you're involved in every single aspect of
Yep.
it. It cannot run without you.
Mhm.
I know how many times I've been on vacation and I've gotten an email or I've got a notification and it just made my vacation that much sweeter. They're like, "Why are you smiling?" "Oh, I just made some money." "Well, how are you making money in your hand?" I'm like, "Oh, because I put systems and things in place." So
Right.
as much as we're talking about teams, we're also in the AI era. So
Mhm.
I'll add to it to the extent for them that we kind of touched on it. There's roughly 5.5 million new businesses started every year,
Mhm.
and only 1 out of 10 go on to be employers.
Mhm.
But we are in an era where you are not necessarily building out teams
Mhm.
and becoming an employer. The employees that you bring in some cases may be AI agents, and you
Mhm.
may outsource things to them. So where I talk about trust issues, my trust issues are across the board, but I have less trust issues with AI to a certain extent than
Yes.
I do with some people, because people have their own things going on. One of the things I try to remind myself all the time is I have no idea what's going on in your life. And if you don't tell me, I won't know. And
Mhm.
me making the assumptions of me thinking I understand
Mhm.
is only setting both of us up for failure. So it's why I believe in having those conversations and making sure you understand where people are and doing those check-ins. But for this AI era, you can create custom agents. You can do
Yep.
things where you as long as it's not proprietary information that you're putting out there, and you have to put some kind of boundaries around it,
Mhm,
because for the experts, you want to protect your intellectual property,
mhm,
and for the audience that you're working with, I almost look at it from HIPAA standards, where it's
mhm.
like there is some information that I can share, and there's some information that I can absolutely not share.
Yeah.
So when we get to that point where you start to systematize things and you start looking for different partners and ways to be able to get the things done, when you go from running the business to trying to figure out how you're going to own the business and have a life, then this is where some of those things kick in. So AI has been great for me because I will find a hole, a blind spot, and say, oh, yeah, I have to fix that. I have to plug that.
Mhm.
And one of the things I'll do is I will train it to be able to take care of that task. And once I train it to take care of that task, then it frees me up to be able to see all the other things.
Mhm.
For lack of a better way to put it, the forest for the trees. Then I can see things because I removed an obstacle. I have a clearer view of the full landscape, and it allows me to be able to start picking up on the other things I want to do. And in some cases, what I tell people is, in those situations where I may come in and there's the DIY, there's done with you and done for you,
Mhm.
I define done for the people that gotten to the point where they have more money than they have time, and
Mhm.
they realize they're prioritizing other things in their life, and they're like,
Mhm.
"I don't need to know how to do it. I just need to know that it's being done and
Mhm.
done well enough to be able to meet the standards and expectations that I have and my audience has." So
Mhm.
when I get to that point, it's really just a matter of kind of explaining, my job is to make it so that you don't have to think about it
Mhm.
and know that you don't have to look over your shoulder when it comes down to it. And when you're outsourcing or if you're training AI and stuff like that, if you can't train it to be able to do something that you don't have to look at, then you're probably giving it the wrong task. You
Mhm.
should probably give it something where it's something that it's operations, it's administrative, it's something where there's if when type of knowledge. So if this happens, then do this. But if it requires strategic thinking or more of you and the creativity, that's where my trust issues kick back in. I am not trusting it to think for me, because there is a saying that I saw in a movie, The Contender, that I love. And it was, I am guilty but not responsible, and I am responsible but not guilty.
Yeah.
I would be guilty and responsible for outsourcing to something to someone and not thinking about what effect it would have on everyone involved in that process.
Mhm.
But if I am outsourcing something to someone or something, then I'm responsible for what it does, but I may not be guilty of what it does. So it almost goes back to that employee mindset of, you can make a mistake in a job. The CEO or the owner may not be guilty of whatever was done, but they're responsible for it
Mhm.
and they're accountable for the
Yep.
results. So same thing is just making sure that you understand it. I'm one of, I love movies and there's just always quotes, but like No Country for Old Men, there's a scene where the guy goes in the gas station. He's like, oh, heads or tails. And the guy's like, oh, well, I got to understand what I stand to gain. I was like, that dude is creepy. He looks like he's problems. I need to understand what I stand to lose. I am not a going to the casino kind of guy. If I'm going there, I'm going there to have dinner. I'm going there to enjoy the time.
Yeah.
But I understand I'm walking in there going, your job is to separate me from my money. So
Yeah.
I'm always thinking about the consequences of what my actions are as
Mhm.
opposed to what I stand to gain. And I think that's where understanding mindsets and understanding where you are in life is
Mhm.
important. That's why I like to have conversations. Give me the context of the surrounding circumstances. What I think some of what you described is there's a difference between taking risk,
Mhm.
mitigating risk, and taking calculated risk. So when
Yes.
we're talking about moving at a certain pace, we're not telling you to hesitate so that you miss an opportunity. We're saying calculate the risk, calculate the consequences of getting it wrong and the
Mhm.
consequences of getting it right. So there are some things where you may choose to do something and it's great. Like you know what? Everything took off, but are you built to scale?
Yes.
Because if you have a really great idea and all of a sudden there's a demand for it, but you can't meet that demand, then it can actually be your undoing,
Yeah.
because then you've ruined the customer experience. People are
Mhm.
coming to you and they say, think about the great restaurants, and you go in and you're like, oh my God, I'm so hungry. I'm
Yeah.
looking forward to this. And they say there's an hour wait. And my stomach is telling me that I am not going to wait an hour to be able to eat, no matter how much I want to enjoy that specific meal. I'm going to end up going someplace else.
Yes. That's true. And I
So,
mean, that's what that's what we do when we begin to start that journey.
mm,
You don't know it when you
yeah.
start. You don't know it when you start. I didn't know it when I started. I didn't know. I just had a skill. that I knew was valuable.
Mhm.
That's it. That's all I knew. And until I started walking the path,
Mhm.
making the decisions, taking a look at the patterns,
Yes.
then I began to go, huh.
Mhm. Mhm.
And that's how I got to here
Yeah.
in the middle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, don't sell yourself short because the is not only seeing it, but is documenting it
Yes.
and recognizing I am not going to do that again.
I
Or
am
I
not.
love the way that went, so I will absolutely do that again
Yes.
and make sure that it works out the way that it's supposed to work out.
Yes.
Yeah, I think this is a good point to kind of put a pin in that portion of the conversation and really just say, okay, by the end of this episode, you'll understand the two most common timing mistakes that people make in major decisions and how to recognize which trap you're more prone to fall into. I think that actually sums it up
Right.
because we're talking about what happens when you move too fast and we're talking
Mhm.
about what happens when you slow down. But what happens in the middle is the understanding of consequences,
Mhm.
the gathering of context,
Mhm.
and making sure that you truly understand what it is that you're looking at. Because once you do, then you have the clarity to be able to make more competent decisions. I have what I call the four C's. I love frameworks because they're easier to remember. And one of the things that I've learned in my business is people don't necessarily like to follow instructions,
True.
especially early stage businesses. On the corporate side, I could hand somebody some instructions and they would pay me royally for it.
Yeah.
But on the entrepreneurial side, it's that again, I want to be the hero in the story. And I'm going into business to be my own business owner, to pick everything and make the choices in my life, that responsibility and accountability. But what they don't want is someone dictating what their business is going to look like. And they're just an employee in what they're laying out for them. So I had
Mhm.
to learn to switch from instructions to guidelines because
Mhm.
I realized I would give people instructions and then they would turn around and do something else with it and say it
Mhm.
didn't work. My
Yeah.
thing is, it's not that it didn't work, it's that you didn't do what I
You didn't
said
follow it.
to do.
Yeah.
I laid it out. I gave you the cautionary tales. I predicted what would happen if you did it that way. I gave you everything that you would need to know, but that's where ownership comes in.
Mhm.
And that's where we start gathering that context. So
Mhm.
one of the things that I think is really important is to be able to understand that and then start to leverage that. So I will give guidelines. So I love frameworks. What I have is what I call the 4 Cs, and it starts with clarity,
Mhm.
it transitions into competence, and then competence leads to confidence, and
Mhm.
then that confidence leads to consistency. So first you have to understand what you're looking at, then you have to know what to do with what it is that you're looking at,
Mhm.
and then you get confident enough because let's be honest, if you're not confident and you're trying to sell something to someone,
Mhm.
that's not really gonna work. It's
No.
if you don't believe in it, why would I believe in it?
Yeah.
And then once you get confident enough where you're able to say, okay, well, I know how to explain things, I know how to do this, I know how to do this, then you can get to the point where you can be consistent with it.
Mhm.
And it takes so many different forms in business where, for example, some examples, people know that you understand what you're looking at and you understand them when they go to like a website and you've got frequently asked questions and those questions are actually relevant to everything that they were going to ask because they're like, oh, okay, so I'm not the first person to ask you that. No.
Oh.
No, been here before.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So those are things that you're listening for. I love that you've talked about the patterns, but you've also framed it in a way that makes a lot more sense because I will say patterns, but it's really context and
Mhm.
understanding what it is that you're looking at. Because once you know that, then that leads to the frequently asked questions.
Mhm.
That leads you to ask better questions.
Right.
There's a saying where it says, if you don't know the answers, you're probably not asking the right questions.
Right. Mhm.
Sometimes I realize that some people don't ask the right questions because they don't want the right questions. Because if they know the question and they know what the results are, then they're responsible for whatever it is they're doing. It
Exactly.
almost falls under the category of what is it better to apologize than to ask permission? It
Mhm.
is the business version of that, where they're like, well, I mean, I could ask that question, but then I would be responsible for knowingly doing something that
Yeah.
I'm generating revenue and I don't want to think about the consequences of how I'm generating. I'd rather just
Mm.
focus on the fact that I'm generating revenue.
Mhm.
And that's where reputation management kicks in. That's why there is a whole industry behind that because
Yeah.
there are a lot of people making a lot of money doing things a certain way and they end up rebranding or selling
Mhm.
off the business or doing certain things and then coming back because they didn't build a business to scale. They built a business to sell.
Mhm.
And those are two completely different things.
Completely different. Yeah.
Okay, so with that, one of the things that I want to do is we've talked about other people. We've talked about some of the things that I'm seeing. What are some of the things that you're working on? I want to help people understand more about you because I remember some things that you said you were working on. And when before I reached out, I remember going to the site and going, look at you. Every single thing. Check, check, check.
Yeah, so what I'm working on, I think I sent it to you. I've been
Congratulations.
published. I just had a recent article published in the Elevate magazine
Very
about,
nice.
and it's a accounting industry magazine, but
Mm,
just telling my story about how I started and, where I am now. And my biggest obstacle, which was my health.
okay.
6 months after I started my business, I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis,
Oh,
and no one knew it. Not my clients didn't know. I kept
mm,
that information to myself.
mm.
Yeah, I kept it
That's an
to myself.
undertaking right there. Yeah.
Yeah, so I've just been sharing that along with the reason why I do what I do was to protect my health.
Hmm.
And was still able to build a business, but I had to learn how to get out of my own way, in order for it to grow. So I've been doing a talk on stages called Let
Mm,
Go So You Can Grow, and I
nice.
talk about that story. And
Nice.
it was, the diagnosis was a catalyst that I didn't know I needed at the time.
Mm,
But
mm.
now we're 15 years in, and it is the reason why I set my business up the way I did, so that it wouldn't always be dependent on me, because I didn't know how dependable I would actually be,
Right.
So, I have been on stages. I look forward to being on more stages in the years to come. And just really stepping into the shareholder role and the business
Mhm.
running itself.
That
So
is what I'm
that's
hearing, yeah.
really what I'm doing, but I am still very passionate about my team, the accounting work that we do for clients, the
Mhm.
education that I do for clients, which is why you saw all those courses and things on my website. I am very passionate about financial literacy
Mhm.
in the entrepreneurial space, because once you become an entrepreneur, now you got a business to think about finances about and your
Right.
family.
Yes.
Like, and then it is really hard. It is really hard to do both, especially if you have baggage with money. If
Yeah.
you have baggage with
Yeah.
money, I trust and promise you, you doing the same thing with your business.
Yes.
So these
Yes.
are the things I talk to entrepreneurs about on the different platforms I'm on, so that's what I'm doing. That's
Okay.
what Michelle is doing.
Well, I mean, there's some things in that I don't wanna gloss over because they're just so powerful and the meaning behind it. There are those things that can be catastrophic, but they can also help you get perspective,
Mhm,
I guess would be one way to put it,
mhm,
and that perspective can either make you or break you.
mhm,
And it's such a thing where you get to find out what people are made of in those
mhm,
situations. So I applaud you. I congratulate you on not letting it distract you to the point where, I know some people that feel like life owes them.
yeah,
And there are some people that feel like I owe life.
mhm,
And what you've done is you didn't make it about you and what you've been going through. You still found a way to give.
mhm,
And that is one of the most difficult things to do when you have your own stuff going on, is
yeah,
to still be able to separate the two and be able to say, you know what? That doesn't change my purpose. It
it
doesn't
does.
change what I'm passionate about. I'm still going to be able to do those things. And the other takeaway I have in that is that you built out a team and you
Mhm,
built out a legacy where you can be a shareholder. I think it's really important. And this was one of the other lessons that I've learned along the way is I was really good at knowing how to do something.
mhm,
But when I shifted over to entrepreneurship, it was the difference between learning how to teach other people how to do it.
mhm, yeah,
And I love the work that I do, but learning how to be able to teach others
mhm,
is where that's where mastering comes in. That's where
mhm,
you really get to learn how to be able to do something because you can learn how to do something one way, but learning how to be able to explain it to people so that
Yes.
they can take it and run with it
Mhm.
and do everything that they need to be able to do with it. There's so much power in that. And it goes back to again where you just it's not about you. You get to step
Right.
back. And the part I love about it, especially entrepreneurship in general, is just the aha moments.
Mhm.
I don't care how much money I make. Like I made money on the corporate side. If I cared about
Mhm.
money, I would have stayed there.
You're
But
right.
the aha moments, it's the best check I've ever had, and seeing what people do when you actually give them something where it removes the obstacles in their way, and
Mhm.
you're able to show them all the things that are possible, and then you actually see them do something with it.
Mhm.
I want to add in that caveat because we did talk about real quick where I was like,
Right.
yeah, I got that Mother Teresa syndrome where if I find myself wanting it for people more than they want it, then I
Mhm.
have to excuse myself in those situations because we're gifted with being able to see that context and those patterns and we can point it out to people. But if they don't have the follow through,
Right.
then two things happen in that. One, they're not actually going to accomplish anything. And two, you distracted yourself from actually helping someone that you could have
Mhm.
actually helped.
Yeah.
And as someone that's result driven, there's nothing more frustrating to me than knowing that I've spent time working with someone that didn't really plan to see it through. They just want to say they want to be an entrepreneur.
Mhm.
Or going back to what you said with being published, there are people that say they want to write a book or they want to do certain things, and they just say it because it sounds good, but
Mhm.
they don't actually have plans to follow through.
Mhm.
And there are the people that actually old school, don't come back to me until you did something with what I gave you.
Right.
And what I heard in everything that you said, and just from my observation, there's nothing you haven't set your mind to that you haven't set out to be able to accomplish. And if you haven't done it, you've got a plan for it and you're moving yourself towards it. So I applaud you, give you your flowers, and I love seeing that kind of progress. It
Thank
sets an
you.
example for the rest of us and makes sure that we can understand that it's possible and not
Yes.
just possible, but plausible, which is also equally important. Like it's one thing to know something's possible. It's another thing to know that you can actually achieve it. And
Yes.
once you have that, then it kind of puts the battery in your back to be able to say, you know what? Yeah, I'm going to do it. It's
Mhm.
something that I think some people, I'm built a little bit different. I don't see people as competition. I'm not an envious person. When I see something that has something that I like or I think I would enjoy, my thing isn't how did you get that? It's I wonder what my version of that would look like. And
Mhm.
then I immediately start working on how can I get my version of it rather than to try to take their version from them.
Right.
And I think it's a little bit different, but I just love what you've been doing and I love what you have out there. I am going to kind of nudge you a little bit because you talked about some of the bigger things that you're doing, but we didn't actually get into the financial aspect. You
Mhm.
are helping people get that financial literacy. You built out courses to be able to help explain it to people. Finance is not my thing. I looked into it, I researched it, I tried it, and those were some of the longest days I have ever worked. I am creative minded. I need a whole other part of my brain to be able to work, to be able to enjoy it. But you found a pleasure and joy in numbers and in helping other people understand it in a way that allows them to do what they need to do. So if you can, I would love for you to be able to talk about the courses so that people understand when it's not just what you've shared, it's all the other things that you would be able to share with them and help them along the way.
Yeah. So the courses, they ebb and flow,
Mm,
but we teach here at Mitchell Consulting financial literacy for entrepreneurs, accounting services for
nice.
entrepreneurs. I personally teach one-on-one with founders who
Mm,
are ready to step into their CEO role.
nice. Nice.
That's what I do. I
Nice.
love doing it
Nice.
because there are as you build confidence when you're in business, sometimes you just need somebody there to just help you along the way.
Hmm.
Like, I'm not doing it for them, but I'm actually guiding them through the pitfalls, the potholes, the mountaintop. And what
Yes.
does the mountaintop feel like?
Hmm.
You need somebody that comes alongside of you who knows what it feels like to be
Hmm.
on the mountaintop,
Yeah,
and then to share it with the people who are trying to get there, right? So
absolutely.
for me, it's not about what I have gone through, although my story matters, but it's about the people who are sitting in the seats. So whether you find us through a course, a roundtable, an article, or whatever, it really doesn't matter. You can
Mm,
take the guide that I gave you to share, the 3 financial habits, and that will put you on a rabbit hole of what Mitchell Consulting can help you with. But also, that doesn't matter to me.
mm,
What matters to me is that you can take the nuggets that I give you and
yeah,
apply them to your life
yeah,
so that you can get the things out of your life that you want while being a business owner.
that part,
That part right there.
that part. Nothing's sweeter to me in the world.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for being a difference maker.
Thank
Thank
you.
you for sharing that part because I think that's really, really important. There are a lot of people that I see online, probably specifically on LinkedIn. Some are on YouTube where they're talking about things that they don't have firsthand experience in.
Mhm,
So they're explaining something and the feeling of something, but how can you explain it if you haven't been there?
mhm,
And people are trusting that. So that kind of goes
mhm,
back to that discernment. What you're giving people is that context
mhm,
that have been on that path and you're like, "Okay, so where you're at right now, this is
mhm.
what this looks like. This if you're
Yeah.
feeling this, then it means that you're doing the right thing. If you're
Mhm.
feeling this, then maybe you're doing the wrong thing." And that's the real power behind Done With You,
Yeah.
is if you pick someone that's actually been there and can explain things in a way that makes sense to you and it clicks, then again, we're talking about ways of shortening that
Mhm,
learning curve, and it allows you to be able to move through that business journey a lot faster, with more stability, with more clarity, and
mhm,
again, clarity, competence, confidence, and
mhm,
consistency. Once
mhm,
you have someone that can show you what you're looking at, and
mhm,
then make sure that you know how to be able to do what you need to do with it, then
mhm.
everything else kind of just falls in place. They're just dominoes. And what
Yeah.
you described is creating that experience for people. And I know you've got the other courses, but I overstand why you like that one, why you personally are in that one, because that's
Mhm.
the part I love the most. I can do a lot of things, but that part
Yeah.
is the part that means the most to me.
Mhm.
Okay, well, with that, what platforms are you on? If someone's trying to get in contact with you or try to find you, is there a platform that you use more than any else?
I would say LinkedIn is probably the one I use the most. Yeah, where people can, contact me and reach out and stuff. I
Okay.
am on Instagram and Facebook, whatever, but
Yeah.
sometimes it's not me talking.
Yeah, yeah. Those are just touch points for me. And I try to explain that to people. I'm like, to friends, do not send me messages on Instagram because
Yeah.
Instagram to me is for people that have products and I am a
Mhm,
service provider. So
mhm.
I'm not shilling anything on there where I can take pictures of it and it gives me a reason to be on there. If you want to have a conversation, if you want to interact with me, you're probably better going to YouTube or LinkedIn.
Yeah.
And I will see it there because that's where I get to tap into the parts that I
Mhm.
enjoy.
Yep.
Makes total sense to me. Yeah. And if you can, please give us the website as well, because I just want to give them entry points to be able to find you and
Yeah.
make sure that they're able to get what they need to.
Yeah. So our website is mitchellconsultingservice.com and our YouTube channel, which is primarily Michelle, is at Mitchell Consulting. So YouTube at Mitchell Consulting is the YouTube channel. And you can hear more about my philosophy, how I feel about financial literacy, and why
Yes.
I think you should deal with your money story.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, definitely something that I will look at and then look away from. Well,
Mhm,
I can understand the importance of paying attention to it because the times that you don't, there's a
mhm,
lot of things that happen, and nobody needs to create blind spots for themselves intentionally
mhm.
because there are going to be things that can present themselves with or without you. So,
Yeah,
if you can have someone guide you through the things to look out for, there is the saying, everything went right until life. There are the things you can plan for, and there's the things that you can't. At least plan for the things that you can plan for.
yeah, exactly.
Okay. Well, with that, I want to thank you so much. I want to tell people that this is something where I will make sure that I share Michelle's information on the website. I'll share it in the description. I will make sure that you get the takeaway to be able to. I didn't look at it yet. Was it a lead magnet or
It
what did you
was.
share? Okay.
Yes. The
I will
3
make sure
3
that they have
financial
access to the
habits.
lead magnet.
Yep,
Okay.
3 financial habits.
And I will make sure that that is in the description. And I want to thank you so much for your time. This
You're
has
welcome.
been everything that I thought it was going to be and more. And it always is. So I am always grateful and I'm blessed for it. So thank you so much. And to everyone else, like, share, and subscribe. This is actually going to be something that potentially grows out to be a series. So this isn't a one and done. This is something where we're going to be able to kind of go into other aspects and make sure that we walk you through it. Before I forget, if people don't do anything else, what's one thing that someone can do to take action right now based on anything that you want to be able to cover? Because we covered a lot.
Yeah. So one of the things we talked about was reflecting,
Mm,
reflecting on what has already happened, right?
yes.
So we are at
Yes.
the beginning of a new year. And I'm telling you, when you reflect on what already happened, you can begin to see the patterns that happen through your journey so that you can do more of the things that work for you and do less of the things that don't.
Yes.
And I give you permission to stop doing things that do not serve you, period.
I've got nothing to add, but that is gonna be a clip that goes out into the rotation. Thank you so much. I wanna thank everyone else for tuning into this. This is gonna end up being not just this longer episode, but I'll break it out into a mini series, so it's portions that are more digestible, and we will see you next time. Thank you for tuning in to the Strategic Thinkers Podcast. Remember, when you can make the inconvenient convenient, people are willing to pay you for the experience. The better the experience, the more they'll not only pay you, but help others pay you. Serving as brand champions. My name is Sean Atkinson, and I'm wishing you well on your journey to your definition of success. If you find this podcast interesting, helpful, worth the listen, like, share, and subscribe. Leave a positive review so people know to check it out, and I'll see you next time.